Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. We're going to take a look here today at Cardano, which is ADA, of course. It's a request from one of my community members, my patrons. Thank you, David, for requesting that I cover this here. It's been a little bit, I think it's been a couple weeks since we looked at it last, and it's obviously at a point right now where I feel like we're going to see a pretty decent breakout. Now, we're going to obviously look closer at the charts to identify why that is, help you understand that, because my role here isn't just to tell you the future, right? Because no one knows what that is. But we're going to use the history to determine what will possibly happen. And by doing so, we're going to use technical data and make sure we understand what's going on by explaining why I see what I see and how I kind of come to that decision, right? Regardless, if you're new to the channel, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. Also, feel free to recommend, or I recommend rather, feel free to check it out. My Patreon account, essentially, I actually have a community where we actually learn and grow together. It's a really cool trading community, essentially. And I send out signals for all the trades that I take. I have a very high success rate. So again, check that out in your own time. I have an instructional video in the link in the description below if you're interested in that. If not, that's perfectly fine. I hope you enjoy the video, learn something here today, and always, always try to learn as much as you can for as many people as possible. I got here, 15 years later because I learned vicariously through others, right? I didn't just wake up one day and become a good trader. It takes time, it takes practice, and patience as well. You'll learn that about me if you're new. Patience is extremely important while being a trader. Try not to FOMO in. It's really important you don't do that. All right, regardless, I'll forget about that for now. Let's go and jump into the charts. Let's check it out. All right, folks, let's go and take a look here at Cardano. Just before we do, we look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, get a quick baseline on the market so we know exactly what's going on. All right, because any good trader will understand what Bitcoin's doing first before making an investment. That's just the bottom line. There's not always a direct correlation between the coins, but there's always at least a similarity, if you will. And I like to identify that. I think it's important. But just before we do, of course, we're going to take a look at TradingView.com desktop application. That's the charting tool that I utilize consistently day in and day out. Recommend the paid versions. I have a link in the description below if you're interested in checking that out and see if you want to try before you buy. Definitely recommend it just based on the simple fact that you get more than 2 indicators present at any given time. Now take a look here at the one-day chart to specify support levels, right? We've got a nice support here at 53,800 that was recently established. It's been pretty much trending closer to that. Yesterday we had this nice bullish Harami candle that closed on the one-day chart to obviously break to the upside, which is pretty standard when we see a bullish Harami at support. Okay, so that basically happened, basically took a signal with my community members, and we're in the profit target zone right now. So it's looking very good. I'm expecting 56,000 before the weekend is over, just based on the overall sentiment going into the weekend, right? The fear, uncertainty, and doubt meter is low. In other words, there's more of a greed index than it is a fear index. Therefore, people are investing. But just bear in mind, Monday, Tuesday, it's a pretty strong likelihood we might see some profits being taken, just based on the fact that the price is much higher than where the average whale had entered during the week. Okay, so just something to think about. Regardless, let's look at the 4-hour chart here. Both moving averages are below the price right now. Therefore, they're working as support levels. Furthermore, we also have a secondary support at 52,600. So if we lose 53.8, we're going to go ahead and hit 52.6 is the next secondary, right? So we got this little channel here just in case. And then the next major support is 50,000. So the best way to understand it is if the price breaks below 53,000 as a rough estimate, we should expect to see the price continue down to 50. If the price breaks above 56,000, again, these are closing on the one-day candlesticks. They have to be closing on the one-day candle. Then we should expect to see 64,000, right? So again, this weekend we can get 56,000 to close on the one-day chart, the one-day candlestick. Then we're going to be looking pretty good here, honestly, especially if Monday comes around. We can get, right around 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we get that one-day candlestick to close above 56,000. Then I think we're going to be able to see a trend upwards of 64,000 in the relative near future. That's kind of just how I conceptualize it. That's how I see it. That's usually how it works in most cases, depending on, again, support and resistance channels. Everything about being successful in Bitcoin is understanding support and resistance zones. Okay? That's how I take most of my entries. That's how I survive. That's how I actually make a living with trading, based on the simple fact that I buy closer to support and resistance zones, depending on if I'm shorting or going long, right? So just keep that in mind. That keeps me at about an 85% success rate overall, just honoring that one specific rule. Okay, so please be careful when you jump in and out of trades. Honor support and resistance zones, and always understand how Bitcoin is performing. right? That's why we look at that. Quick understanding of Ethereum here. Now, simply put, Ethereum will take off soon, especially if Bitcoin can trend closer to 56,000. You can see it's getting ready to take off, especially on the 4-hour candlestick. We can see that we've got an ascending wedge pattern here forming right about 3,600. And of course, we got the 50-day simple moving average working concurrent with the price action. That'll keep driving the price up, as well as the fact that we've got a secondary support at 3,200 if that fails. I don't think it will, because the 200-day simple moving average is above also, which tends to work fairly well as a strong support level for Ethereum. So I really think that we're going to see 4,000 as the next major milestone in the next couple of weeks for Ethereum, just based on the simple fact that Bitcoin is trending positively right now. And if we can get Bitcoin to close above 56,000, that's a really important point. On the one-day chart, we can definitely experience an increase with Ethereum. All right, so just bear that in mind. That's gonna happen. That's a strong likelihood. Now, ADA, it's hard to say specifically what will happen here, okay? And I hate to just throw it out there like that, but simply put, when we're in all-time high territory, it can be kind of interesting because right now we're not seeing any. I mean, there are some patterns. We'll actually take a look here. Let's start over. Okay, so from the get-go, one-day chart here, let's take a quick look at the moving averages, right? So the price is under the 50, which it makes sense considering it had to retrace back down because it was at its highest point there, closer to $3. We do have kind of an ascending pattern forming here though, so keep this in mind. There is a price moving up, and we can see that we also have a potential pretty strong resistance level right at about 233. Okay, so the likelihood of this breaking out to the upside is pretty high. Another reason I believe that is based on the simple fact that we have a similar pattern forming to before. So ADA has a tendency coming up, over, and then up, down, right? So if we see that here, we got this up here, this down, and we could see another leg up. Okay. Now again, it's not exact, don't get me wrong. I mean, oftentimes when you look at something like this, I don't like to put a lot of weight into it. You're kind of reaching at straws, right? Because patterns don't always continue, but they have a tendency of doing so more often than not, especially in cryptocurrency. So generally speaking, if you look at the past and the history of how it ramps up and then it trails off because it jumped up too high too quickly, it's doing the same thing here as well. It ramped up, it got too high too fast, and then it's coming back down, but now it looks like it's getting ready for a breakout. Because you look at this here just before one of its previous breakouts, we had an ascending wedge pattern that broke to the downside, and then it cranked up. Okay? So we could hypothetically see a break to the downside, and then it come back up again, right? Again, we never truly know, but history does have a tendency of repeating itself, so just bear that in mind. That could be a potential eventuality here. So all speculation aside, let's go ahead and take a look at the real stuff here. As we can see, 50 on the RSI is working as a resistance. That is also something worth noting. Once we break above 50 on the RSI, that could be a very strong indication that we are now in bullish convergence, not bearish divergence, right? So pay attention to the 50 on the RSI. That's a really helpful tool to understand more specifically where the price action is trending. Okay, and that kind of goes concurrent with the resistance zone that's here on the chart as well, right? So 233, 234 appears to be a pretty strong resistance right now for ADA. We can break above that and hold above that on the one-day chart. We're going to be looking good to likely see a break to the upside. Okay. Now, whether it goes up from here or trends downwards, it's hard to say specifically. We'll have to wait a couple days to kind of identify that. But I would recommend before taking entry, if you're considering that, maybe just wait to see how the resistance level is tested here. It could break to the downside like it has in the past, but it could also break upwards as well. I know it's kind of just like crapshoot, right? It's hard to say. It's more so 50-50 at this point. But based on how the one-day candlestick closes, if it closes above that resistance at 234, then we're likely going to be in the clear. In other words, we should expect to see that be the ground level moving forward and see the price trend towards its previous all-time high of roughly $3. Okay. We do have a MACD convergence here on the one-day chart. That was fairly recent. That was on the 2nd. That's a little ways away. That's basically a week away. And as you can see, it pumped up and it's gone sideways since then, rejecting at 234. So I'm not going to put a lot of weight into that. Let's take a look at the 4-hour chart and see if we have anything going on here, though. Kind of. I don't really love this kind of... I don't like when we see a MACD convergence when it's already kind of heightened like that. I foresee that not really... I think that might just fizzle out. But regardless, the important thing here to note is the fact that the price is above the 50. The price is above the 50-day simple moving average, and you can see it worked as a nice little support level here. The 200 is pushing the price down, so it'll be interesting to see here. Keep this in mind as well. We do have a, yeah, this is nice. This could work out favorably, right? So look, we got this golden cross potentially happening. So we might see a break to the upside. It's pretty common for the 50 to push the price through the 200, and it will have to push through the resistance zone here as well. So now that I look at this a little closer, there's a good chance, a better chance of the price breaking to the upside than the downside, just based on that sentiment alone there. Because again, the secondary prerequisite essentially for just say a whale, right? So if a whale takes a look at this and they're like, okay, we look at the 1-day chart first to identify support and resistance zones. The secondary thing that they do is they look at the 4-hour chart, right? The 4-hour chart is like the most appropriate time frame to use outside of the 1-day chart when it comes to the moving averages. Therefore, even though there's not a ton of weight being put into a moving average like this, it's still very relevant, if that makes sense. In other words, this potential convergence here, essentially where the 50 will intersect with the 200, the golden cross, very similar to a MACD convergence, is going to likely push the price up more so than it will down. Okay, especially with Bitcoin being where it's at right now, trending closer to 56,000. My goodness, if Bitcoin can close over 56,000 on the 1-day candle, just say today, we'll see this one take off. Again, it's all speculation at this point based on the fact that we're fairly reliant on Bitcoin, but with Bitcoin doing well and Cardano going sideways, that's actually just a case in point where we want to expect, and I think it's likely for the price to come up. Okay. Anyway, just things that I'm kind of picking up on here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 1-hour chart. We are within the cloud right now. Okay. So that being said, we can break above or outside of the cloud here. We're going to be looking pretty good. Now, bear in mind, the cloud is essentially holding the price down. And if you're new to the channel, I apologize. The Ishimoku cloud is what we're looking at here. That's this green and this red cloud, so to speak. And what it is, if you have it first, if you're first setting it up, it's going to look very, very messy. You're going to be like, no, mine doesn't look anything like yours. Well, just disable the first 5 options and just keep the 6th one enabled, and you'll see what I'm looking at here. It's much cleaner. Don't get me wrong; those other things serve a purpose, but for just more of a basic use, this is the best way to utilize it. And what I'm getting at is when the price breaks above the cloud, it's considered a buy signal. Below, it's considered a sell signal. So you can see back here, obviously, again, this was a pretty significant jump. But when the price broke above, it stayed above for some time, right? It broke below here, didn't continue, so we didn't, kind of false alarm. But if it breaks above here, there's a strong chance the price will continue upwards. Furthermore, we might actually get a convergence in the MACD concurrently with that, and then we'll see it kind of drive itself through that resistance zone. So I'm going to probably set some alerts here and see if we might need to pay closer attention here to ADA today, because this is definitely something that looks like it's getting kind of ready to take off. How hard it's going to pump up, it's hard to say specifically, because Cardano has a tendency of ramping up very quick, but also kind of going sideways when you don't expect it to, right? Anyways, a large market capitalization coin, when we've got Bitcoin doing as well as it has, it's just a matter of time before this one takes back off again. I feel like it's definitely at its lowest point that it's going to be at for some time until we see a significant sell-off from Bitcoin next year. So take a look here at the 15-minute. Really not much to extract except for the simple fact that we are up over EMA and VWAP right now. Actually, more so VWAP. And let me explain that too. If you're new to the channel, the volume weighted average price is just a way of understanding support and resistance within the current price action, right? So it takes the volume last 24 hours, expresses as a price. So right now the price should be at about 226, whereas the price is at 227. It's really, really close. Therefore, it's going to continue to work as a support level here. So we can kind of see it's pushed the price up. There's a strong likelihood that'll continue. So when you're taking entry, again, if you're a swing trader, don't worry much about this, because honestly, you want to more so try to buy closer to support and resistance zones. Every cent doesn't matter as much if you're just going to hold for a long time. But say you're going to hold for a short amount of time, like a lot of times I'll send out signals to my community members for a day trade, for example, something I'm going to hold for just hopefully less than 24 hours. Or if it is over 24, it's definitely less than a week. I look at something like this to identify a good entry point based on the fact that I want to get the best value, because that small percentage makes a big difference when I'm leveraging so much, right? I have a large amount of capital that I use, and it's going to give me a larger gain. So I like to look at this here. And what I like to look for is the price above VWAP. That's check number 1. I prefer also the price to be above EMA as well. And this is the EMA 15. And what I do is I look for the price to be above and wait 30 minutes to get that confirmation that I have, the bulls are moving in the same direction as the price that I wanted to, right? So if you look back here, you can kind of see these little yellow up arrows. That's just kind of built into my notification. Whereas I just go ahead and take entry here, or I'd take entry here, essentially, basically giving me confirmation that, hey, we've got 30 minutes of confirmation in the sense that the bulls are in control in this time frame. Price is above support, which is a VWAP, and the price is above VMA, which is also another kind of momentous support. I'm paraphrasing a lot to kind of shorten the time frame here because I do tend to ramble on about these things. I'll be able to explain this further if you decide you want to join my Patreon account, because I do actually have a Signal community where we all share and grow and learn together. It's really awesome. I actually send out signals for every trade that I take, and we just pretty much share profits. It's really an awesome situation, and you have a one-click follow option for the trading bot, which we use Cornix at this point. And what's nice though is it has trailing stop losses, things that most exchanges don't offer, and it really helps you protect your profits, right? That's why I trend at about an 85% success rate, because these trading bots make it so much easier and much nicer to not have to sit there and keep adding and moving your stop losses or taking profits at 2 or 3 different targets. It just automates the whole process. Anyways, check that out in your own time. There's a link in the description below for that instructional video as well I've made to ensure you understand what you're getting into. But simply put, I hope to see you there, get to know you better. If not, that's okay too. Thank you so much for joining me here. Let me actually paraphrase and just summarize here in my prediction, right? Because I like to kind of give you a sense of direction, I guess you could say. Based on what I've seen so far on the 4-hour chart with the the moving averages and the fact that we have a potential golden cross there, as well as the fact that we have an ascending wedge pattern here, I think it's likely it's going to break to the upside. I think that's pretty likely. How hard it's going to break, how high it's going to go is really hard to say specifically, but the fact that it has an all-time high here, let's just go ahead and mark that as well. Again, this is a closing on the one-day chart. It's not technically the high, but the one-day chart told us that 296 is the resistance, so that's basically the all-time high. I think it'll probably test that again here in the next couple months. Okay. So again, if you're in there, you got a position open right now, great. Maybe consider just holding on to it. Don't worry about it. It's going to bounce back. But if you're interested in maybe a 30% increase, I wouldn't hesitate. I would consider taking entry here in the near future, because I think it's very likely that ADA will bounce back and hit its all-time high, if not break it. Because we've seen what happens when it breaks its all-time high. When it broke here, it broke hard. That was that 30% difference right there. And that was only in a matter of 4 or 5 days. So if we can break this all-time high again, what's the likelihood of $4 or $5? I think it's fairly high. Again, it depends on how far and how long, right? By year end, is this going to be around $4? I think that's pretty likely. Yeah, I think $4 is very likely. But, we're going to see $10 from ADA this year? No, probably not. 4 to 5, I think, would be probably the limitation that we'd see just based on its natural progression concurrent with Bitcoin's success. So just keep that in mind, something to be aware of. So yeah, again, I guess my prediction would say 1 to 2 months, easy breaking its all-time high at $3. I would say that we're going to likely break to the upside here and work within this channel for a little while, but it will probably happen soon. So I think the next week or so, we're going to see a break to the upside, just based on the natural progression that's happening right now, especially with that 4-hour chart. With this golden cross potential or eventuality, essentially, I think it's likely going to happen. All right, so hopefully you found benefit. If so, great. If not, thank you so much for watching this far. We'll see you in the next video. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.